UFC's first show of the year, January 14th, Las Vegas at the Apex. By Ryan Frederick. Amidst all of the controversy surrounding Dana White and the sport in general to start 2023, action was back inside the octagon on January 14th at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. It was an inauspicious start to the year, as the first scheduled main event of 2023 saw a late change, ending with a new main event announced the Monday of Fight Week. The original main event was slated to be a middleweight bout between Nassourdine Imavov and Kelvin Gastelum. However, during Gastelum's final training session on Monday, he took a knee to the chin that knocked a tooth out and loosened the rest of his teeth badly enough that they had to be sewn to his gums in order to not fall out, and he had to pull out of the fight. Sean Strickland, who had fought in the main event of the last UFC show in 2022, was called to fill in, and the bout was changed to a light heavyweight fight due to the late change. By filling in and taking the fight, Strickland became the first fighter to headline 2 straight UFC events in the modern era of nearly weekly shows. The size difference was very apparent at both the weigh-ins, and especially inside the octagon during the fight. Strickland weighed in at 205 pounds, while Imavov weighed in at 194 pounds. Strickland likely cut about 10 to 15 pounds, and Imavov is a small middleweight in general and likely walked into the cage around the same weight. Strickland did look at least 20 pounds bigger in there during the fight, and it played a key difference. Strickland utilized his size and constant pressure to keep him on offense, leading to scoring a clear decision win. Imavov couldn't handle the size and power difference and never really got much going, and that's without adding the fact that Strickland's style is completely different from the style of Gastelum. Imavov's best chance was to hope Strickland gassed out, which he did, but it was too late in the fight to make a difference. Strickland clearly won at least 3 rounds in the fight, with many feeling he won 4 and Imavov only won the 5th. It got Strickland back into the win column after dropping fights to Alex Pereira and Jared Cannonier in his last 2 fights, but also showed that if he added a little size, he could compete at light heavyweight. He did tease it after weighing in for the Cannonier fight, and making 185 pounds is getting tougher for him. The rest of the show was good for the most part. There weren't any blow-away fights, and the card was one of the weaker cards in recent times, mainly due to knowing they were competing with the NFL playoffs, so viewership was going to be on the lower end. There were some strong finishes from notables such as Dan Ige, Roman Kopylov, Umar Nurmagomedov, and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. The one fight on the card that could play into a title picture saw Raquel Pennington score a close, split decision win over Ketlin Vieira. Vieira was likely just 1 win away from a title fight, and she could have gotten a shot, but she opted to fight instead of waiting to see what was next for Amanda Nunes. It didn't work out for her as Pennington scored her 5th straight win, putting herself in the mix for Nunes' next opponent. It was a fight that could have gone either way, and the vast majority of media scores had it for Vieira, but it wasn't anything close to being a robbery. There was one fight scrapped from the card on Friday during the weigh-ins, that being a women's flyweight fight between Priscilla Cachoeira and Chijara Eubanks. Cachoeira had already successfully made weight when the announcement came that the fight was scratched from the card due to Eubanks having weight management issues. Eubanks has a history of missing weight at flyweight. She lost 2 chances at fighting for the flyweight title due to weight issues, and had missed weight twice overall, including in her most recent fight. They really should make her fight at 135 pounds, because this is an ongoing issue that is only going to affect her health, trying to make a weight that she clearly can no longer make. The entire show aired on ESPN+, so no viewership totals are known. They went against 2 NFL playoff games, both of which did big numbers. Google searches for the UFC on Saturday were over 200,000, but that was likely more due to the post-fight press conference announcements surrounding Francis Ngannou and the fight between Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane being made official. They gave out for performance of the night bonuses, with the $50,000 each going to Dan Ige, Roman Kopylov, Umar Nurmagomedov, and Alan Nascimento. 1. Charles Johnson, 13-3, beat Jimmy Flick, 16-6, in 4:33 in a flyweight fight. Flick was returning from retirement, having last fought in December 2020. They landed leg kicks to start before Flick got a takedown, but Johnson reversed and they stood. Johnson was picking Flick apart on the feet and Flick had no answer. Flick went for a couple of takedowns, was able to score one and looked for a choke from the back. However, Johnson reversed to the top and started landing lots of punches and elbows until the fight ended up being stopped. This was an impressive showing from Johnson. 2. Dan Argueta, 9-1, beat Nick Aguirre, 7-1, via unanimous decision on scores of 30-27, 30-27 and 30-27 in a featherweight fight. Aguirre was making his UFC debut, taking the fight on Tuesday after Isaac Belgarian pulled out, Argueta got an early takedown and worked from the top before looking for an armbar. Aguirre was able to get the back and threatened with a choke, but Argueta ended up getting back to the guard before getting the back and ending the first there. Argueta landed to start the second, and they were both landing on the feet before Argueta got a takedown. He dominated on the mat, almost getting a finish with a rear naked choke a couple of times, and he had the mount a couple of times as well, landing lots of shots. Aguirre did survive the second. The third saw Argueta land more on the feet as Aguirre was missing whenever he was throwing punches and kicks. Argueta got 2 takedowns during the round and had well over 3 minutes of total control time in the third. This was a clear win for Argueta. I had it 30-26 for him, giving him a 10-8 seconds. All media scores had it for him. 3. Alan Nascimento, 20-6, beat Carlos Hernandez, 8-2, in 3:16 in a flyweight fight. They traded to start and Nascimento got a takedown, then got the back as they stood and dragged it back down. He had the body triangle locked in and was looking for the choke. They stood and Nascimento was still on the back of Hernandez, and he managed to lock in the rear naked choke and got Hernandez to tap while they were on their feet. It was a slick submission by Nascimento. 4. Mateusz Rebecki, 17-1, beat Nick Fiore, 6-1, via unanimous decision on scores of 30-26, 30-27 and 30-27 in a lightweight fight. Both men were making their UFC debuts. The first saw Rebecki land more as he mixed his punches and kicks and landed to the body and head. He also scored a takedown after landing big uppercuts to the body, and ended the first landing big shots from the top. The second saw both men score takedowns, but Rebecki was way more effective with his as he had a lot of control time on the ground and landed with more volume throughout the round. Rebecki got an early takedown in the third. Fiore went for a guillotine, but Rebecki popped his head out and spent the rest of the third on top, landing punches and keeping Fiore planted on his back. This was a clear-cut win for Rebecki. I had it 30-27 for him, and all media scores had it for him. 5. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, 12-5, beat Claudio Ribeiro, 10-3 in 28 in the second round in a middleweight fight. Ribeiro was making his debut. He was landing a lot of leg kicks early before Al Hassan decided to start checking them. Al Hassan went for a takedown against the fence, but Ribeiro defended and landed more leg kicks after they broke. Al Hassan went back for the takedown and landed some knees and had a nice flurry at the end of the first that had Ribeiro in trouble. The second started and Al Hassan was unloading big punches and had Ribeiro in serious trouble. Al Hassan landed some big right hands against the fence, including one that put Ribeiro down, and it was all over there. This was a big win for Al Hassan, who had struggled of late, but he showed he's still dangerous with heavy power here. 6. Javid Basharat, 14-0, beat Mateus Mendonca, 10-1, via unanimous decision on scores of 30-27, 30-27 and 29-28 in a bantamweight fight. Mendonca was making his UFC debut. The first round was all Basharat on the feet, landing with more volume and mixing everything well. Mendonca got a brief takedown and had the back for a moment, but nothing came from it, and Basharat had a late takedown, where he landed some good shots from the top. The second saw Basharat land early and Mendonca got a takedown, but they worked their way up and Basharat started to land with lots of volume on the feet. Basharat got a takedown and landed a lot of shots from the top, which cut Mendonca open. The third saw Mendonca try for the takedown, but Basharat got one. Mendonca almost had a triangle choke locked in, but Basharat escaped and landed more on his feet and on the mat. I had it 30-27 for Basharat. All media scores had it for him. He called out Chris Gutierrez after the fight. 7. Umar Nurmagomedov, 16-0, beat Raoni Barcelos, 17-4, in 4:40 in a bantamweight fight. It was all on the feet as they were trading, with Nurmagomedov landing with more volume. He was mixing his punches and kicks to the head and body very well, though Barcelos did land a few power shots. Nurmagomedov landed a series of kicks followed by punches. Then, when they were inside the pocket, Nurmagomedov landed a knee, then a left hook that knocked Barcelos out cold. This was Nurmagomedov's most impressive win thus far, as Barcelos had never been knocked out in his career. 8. Raquel Pennington, 15-8, beat Ketlin Vieira, 13-3, via split decision on scores of 29-28, 28-29 and 29-28 in a women's bantamweight fight. The first was all on the feet and fairly even as they were trading throughout. Pennington landed with slightly more volume, finding a home for the jab and mixing to the body, but Vieira did land the harder shots throughout the first. The second saw Pennington land with more volume and the battle in the clinch began. Vieira had more control time, but it was Pennington who continued to land more from the position, and the second was another close round. They traded some big punches to start the third until the clinch battle began. Vieira had more control time in the clinch and landed a few good elbows despite Pennington landing with more significant strikes overall in the round. All three rounds were very close and could have gone either way. I had it 29-28 for Vieira, giving her the first and third rounds. The only round the judges agreed on was Pennington winning the second. Media scores were 13% for Pennington and 87% for Vieira. 9. Roman Kopylov, 10-2, beat Punahele Soriano, 9-3 in 3:19 in the second round in a middleweight fight. The first round was all trading on the feet for almost the entire round. Soriano landed some big left hands, but Kopylov started to come on with the volume as the round went on. Kopylov was really finding a home for the jab. Kopylov had a strong close to the first as he got a late takedown and landed a big combo before the horn sounded. The second saw both men landing big shots, but Kopylov was pouring it on with a volume and hurting Soriano as the round went on. Kopylov also landed some body kicks that were doing damage and Soriano had no answer for them, though he was swinging for the fences. Kopylov landed a body kick and then started teeing off on Soriano, who started covering up until it was stopped. This was an excellent showing from Kopylov. 10. Dan Ige, 16-6, beat Damon Jackson 22-5 and won 1 NC in 4:13 in the second round in a featherweight fight. Ige was landing some hard shots early and made Jackson fall to his knees at one point. Jackson was able to recover, but the rest of the first saw Ige land with more volume and he wobbled Jackson a few times with some hard punches. The second saw Jackson actually land more, but Ige was doing lots of damage and hurting Jackson every time he landed, including cutting Jackson open. Ige landed a big left hook that dropped Jackson and started walking off and the fight was stopped. This was a great showing and finish from Ige. 11. Sean Strickland, 26-5, beat Nasruddin Imavov, 12-4, via unanimous decision on scores of 49-46, 49-46 and 48-47 in a light heavyweight fight. Strickland was doing his usual pressing forward and keeping his hands low, but he was effective during the first as he landed more than Imavov. Imavov seemed to be having difficulty with the size difference and was mixing his punches and kicks while Strickland was landing the jab but also mixing in other punches. The second was a closer round as it was even in volume on the feet. Strickland was landing some teep kicks to the body early in the round and got a takedown, but they got up. Strickland had more control time, adding time in the clinch, but Imavov seemed to land the more effective strikes in the round. The third and fourth rounds were very similar. Strickland landed with big volume in both rounds and really started to pull away in the third, and even more in the fourth, by using his effective jab and also mixing in other combinations. Imavov was likely needing a finish in the fifth, and he had a good round. Strickland was still landing the jab but was tired and Imavov picked up the pace, especially towards the end. He just didn't have enough power to finish Strickland, though he landed with more volume in the fifth and finished the fight strong. I had it 48-47 for Strickland, giving him the first, third and fourth. This was a clear win for him, and all media scores had it for him. AAA held a press conference on January 17th with the big news being the announcement of 3 Triple Mania events this year, like last year, and the return to the promotion of Alberto El Patron. The latter move was controversial given Alberto's behavior of the last many years, and in particular a May 9, 2020 arrest where he was charged with violently assaulting and sexually assaulted his girlfriend at the time. He was charged with aggravated kidnapping and sexual assault, but the woman later changed her story and because of that, the charges were dropped. But the description was so apparent and given the police report with the wounds being consistent with the women's original story, no major promotion has used him since. Just based on a lot of its actions of late, AAA seems at times desperate for something big. Alberto was a huge star in Mexico not that many years ago, largely based off the fact that WWE pushed Alberto Del Rio very hard because they saw him, because he was tall, spoke well, and looked like a star, as the successor to the aging Rey Mysterio as the guy to be their Latin star. But he never got over to the level of his push, and if it wasn't for issues outside the ring probably would have been brought back a third time. But in recent years Alberto's name has meant nothing at the box office for a number of promotions that have built around him, like the current Nacion Lucha Libre group. There would be a very negative reaction in at least some promotions if he was wrestling in the US, coming off the original charges. But in Mexico, the reaction wouldn't be expected to be as strong. AAA Booker Conan did an interview with Wrestling Incorporated, defending the use of Alberto. I correlate him with Trump. I think a lot of the things that Trump did were impeachable and he should have gone to jail or court or something. And he'd always gotten away with murder, right? I don't know if he did it or if he didn't do it. Now, I don't know what happened between him and Soraya, only they know. Obviously it wasn't anything good because it was a bitter separation, but he's got to live, bro, with that stigma for the rest of his life. And I'll give you an example. He told me that he had to move from his neighborhood because the other parents' kids, they didn't want to play with his kids. Everywhere he goes, he was like a hero in Mexico, and he went from a hero to a zero. Bro, you got to live with that, okay? Conan said Alberto told him things would be different now, and Conan said he's entitled to a second chance. Now, how long do I keep punishing him? He's been out of the business 2 or 3 years. I spoke to him and he's told me he's changed. He sent me pictures of him in Christmas. He knows that we're taking a big chance on him, and he's under a microscope and a magnifying glass at the same time. We're giving him another chance. Everybody deserves another chance because I can guarantee you, all these virtue signalers and all these guys that like to talk about how everybody should be nice and equal, they're the biggest bullies. How long should he pay? Because I know for sure you've done something in the last few years that you'd be embarrassed if people found out about, and everybody else is okay, but we bully on this guy because he is a public figure. These people that have not gone to prison, obviously they're in the prison of public opinion, and obviously, he was under substance abuse. He no longer is, according to him. And he says he's a changed man. I say let's give him a chance. If he fucks up, he'll never work with me again. The key issue is this. What he was accused of with his ex-girlfriend, not Soraya, was so far beyond something that anyone should be allowed back from. However, as a technicality, she did change her story and he was not found guilty. That muddies the situation. Still, he got into several fights at shows with other wrestlers at shows. One argument I saw made against using him is that the reality is everyone knows wrestling promoters, not all but many, will look the other way at almost anything if the guy can draw money for them. But the belief of many is that Alberto is past that point. AAA historically has brought in big-name talent long past their prime and returns, and many times at first those people have drawn. Their hope is Alberto will be someone to give them a short-term jolt. In Mexico, the reaction to Alberto being back wasn't negative. The 3 Triple Mania shows will be April 16th in Monterrey at the baseball stadium that AAA has run several major events in recent years, June 17th in Tijuana at the soccer stadium, and August 12th at Arena Ciudad in Mexico City. They ran 3 shows last year in the same buildings, built around a series of legends battling to save their masks, which Villano 4 ended up losing. The Monterrey show drew an announced 13,637, Tijuana was the biggest draw with 16,732, and Mexico City did 14,100. The 2023 shows are built around a Parejas Increíbles tournament, once again with the losers advancing, and Mexico City somebody will get either their head shaved or their mask taken off. There will be 2 matches in Monterrey involving the teams of Psycho Clown, Mask, and Sam Adonis Hair, Pagano Hair, Rush Hair, Pentagon Jr. Mask, and Alberto El Patron Hair, and Blue Demon Jr. Mask, and DMT Azul Mask. The appearances at Psycho and Adonis versus Rush and Pagano and Pentagon, and Alberto versus Demon and Azul. But that's not 100% official. The 2 losing teams will face off in Tijuana. The losing team in that match will have its individual members in a match in Mexico City. The only possibility of a Mask versus Mask match is Demon versus Azul, which Demon would almost assuredly win. Psycho versus Adonis could happen with Psycho winning. Pena and Alberto are very unlikely to lose, since Pena isn't losing his mask in Mexico while under contract to AEW. Alberto could shave his head, but it's very unlikely. Similarly, Rush, under contract to AEW, isn't losing a hair match in Mexico. Pagano could, but there's no great novelty to it since he lost his hair previously to Nicho, WCW Psychosis, in 2015 and to Psycho in 2016 at Triple Mania. Azul had quit AAA in August to do an independent feud with Demon. They were the only team at the press conference and brought that feud back to AAA. An interesting note is that in the graphic showing Alberto, they listed Nacion Lucha Libre, the promotion that he's involved with. He's also been publicly very critical of AAA in the past, the last time the 2 sides stopped doing business. But this is wrestling. It's also known Hugo Savinovich, who has influence on AAA Creative, has always been a supporter of Alberto, even when few others would say they were publicly. Also announced was a February 11th show called Tribute to the Troops in Naucalpan at a military base. Only servicemen and their families will be allowed to attend that show. They also announced a World Cup show on March 19th at the baseball stadium in Guadalajara. The idea is to do an 8-team men's trios tournament and a 4-team women's trios tournament. The men's tournament will have 2 teams from Mexico, and 1 from the US, Canada, Japan, UK, South America and Puerto Rico and rest of the world. They announced they would be using wrestlers from Qatar Pro Wrestling. The only team announced as one of the Mexico teams, being AAA Mega Champion El Hijo del Vikingo teaming with Psycho and Alberto. The women's tournament will have a Mexico team, a US team, a Japan team and a rest of the world team. Roldan this week also said that shows like Rey de Reyes, Verano de Escándalo, Heroes Immortales and Guerra de Titanes will be brought back this year after building last year only around the Triple Mania shows. A key is that nothing was announced for Los Angeles over WrestleMania weekend, and if there was a big show, one would think this would be the time it would be announced. Dorian Roldan had mentioned months ago the idea of a major US show that he'd be doing with a friend and it would be announced in a few weeks. The show was to be held at a soccer stadium in Los Angeles and that time frame came and went. Leonard Mendez Toledo compiled his annual listing of the best matches of 2022 from the pages of The Observer. Based on the compilations here, there were more 4-star matches in 2022 than any year in history, with 385. That makes sense because there is more access to view matches and wrestling got back in the swing of things all year in front of live crowds. Also, AEW Dynamite in particular is put together weekly to have great matches as the goal far more than any pro wrestling television show in history except New Japan's television, but AEW has 3 hours a week. The previous record was 308 in 2019, before COVID, so this blasted by it. AEW had 117, the third biggest in history. The record was 137 by New Japan in 2019 and second is New Japan with 188 in 2018. New Japan had 95 and WWE has 71, which was the most WWE has had in any given year. You could say that's not a surprise with 7 hours of weekly television and monthly pay-per-view shows. Plus Paul Levesque does have good matches on television as a higher priority than Vince McMahon. Still under McMahon in 2021, they had 69 so that's not really a measurable difference. New Japan had 12 other matches and AEW had 8 other matches on shows promoted with other companies. Not surprisingly, Forbidden Door, with 8 4-star matches, had the most for any individual show. AEW Revolution had 7. AEW Double or Nothing and CMLL's anniversary show both had 6. For television, AEW Dynamite dwarfed everything with 76, followed by SmackDown and Rampage with 17 and Raw with 9. Like is always the case because there are more companies and more shows, Tokyo is first among cities with 61, followed by Osaka with 37, Orlando with 26, Chicago with 22 and Las Vegas, Mexico City, and London with 10. There would be a lot more than 10 in Mexico City if I was watching the Friday night shows weekly. To no surprise, AEW and New Japan dominate the top 20 for the year. 1. Will Ospreay 28, 2. Jon Moxley 24, 3. Rey Fenix 22, 4. Young Bucks 19, 6. Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson 18, 8. Chris Jericho, amazing given his age. Pentagon Jr. and Tomohiro Ishii 17, 11. Pac 16, 12. Shingo Takagi 15, 13. Dax Harwood 14, 14. Tetsuya Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. 13, 16. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Sammy Guevara and Seth Rollins 12, 19. Cash Wheeler, Jey Uso and Jungle Boy 11. Judging only singles matches, the top 5 are Ospreay with 24, Moxley with 19, Ishii with 17, Danielson with and Okada with 14. There was 21 5-star matches, tying 2018 and 2019 for the most. New Japan had 7 and AEW had 4. The most notable thing was FTR versus Mark and Jay Briscoe having 3 against each other. Ospreay had 8 while Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood each had 4. Historically, Tokyo runs away with the most in history. In the US, top 3 are Orlando with 160, Los Angeles with 159 and New York with 112, which were 3 through 5 after Tokyo and Osaka. Tokyo had 895, with 303 at Korakuen Hall, which no doubt has been the building that housed more great wrestling matches than any other just because of how many shows are run there by such a wide variety of companies, 195 at Sumo Hall and 185 at Budokan Hall. The updated top 50 of all time are 1. Okada 164, 2. Ishii 149, that's now a lock for a Hall of Fame vote every year from me. 3. Ospreay 147, and he's not yet even 30. 4. Tanahashi 143, 5. Kenta Kobashi 142, 6. Mitsuharu Misawa 139, 7. Nick Jackson 138, 8. Matt Jackson 137-9. Toshiaki Kawada 129-10. Kenny Omega 114-11. Tetsuya Naito 108-12. Kota Ibushi 107-13. Jushin Liger 97-14. AJ Styles 93-15. Chris Benoit 89-16. Bryan Danielson 86-17. Rey Mysterio 85-18. Hiroki Goto 84-19. Chris Jericho and Rey Fénix 82-21. Akira Tao 81-22. Zack Sabre Jr. 80-23. Jon Moxley 78-24. Shingo Takagi and Kurt Angle 71-26. Seth Rollins 70-27. Shinjiro Otani 67-28. Jun Akiyama 66-29. Seiya Sanada, Ricochet, Koji Kanemoto, Pentagon Jr. 63-33. Kenta 62-34. Manami Toyota 58-35. Shinsuke Nakamura, Edge and Kyle O'Reilly 56-38. Adam Cole and Minoru Suzuki 54-40. Roman Reigns and Kushida 53-42. Eddie Guerrero and Kevin Owens 51-44. Hiromu Takahashi and Pac 50-46. Shawn Michaels and Yuji Nagata 49-48. John Cena, Keiji Muto and Randy Orton 48. For singles matches, the top 20 are 1. Okada 124-2. Ishii and Ospreay 118-4. Tanahashi 109-5. Naito 88-6. Ibushi 81-7. Sabre Jr. 78. Omega 67-9. Danielson 63-10. Styles 61-11. Benoit 59-12. Goto and Takagi 56-14. Kobashi and Kurt Angle 52-16. Kawada and Jericho 49-18. Liger and Sanada 48-20. Misawa 47. Of those in the top 50 who are not in the Hall of Fame, that would be Ishii, Ospreay, not eligible. Young Bucks, not eligible. Goto, Fénix, not eligible. Sabre, not eligible. Moxley, Takagi, Rollins, Otani, Sanada, Ricochet, Kanemoto, Pentagon, Kenta, Edge, O'Reilly, Cole, Reigns, Kushida, Owens, Takahashi, Pac, and Orton. Because of streaming platforms and modern television shows, the current generation wrestlers have a huge edge here. Someone like Danielson or Omega, pre-New Japan, with all the house shows that weren't filmed or shows that were on smaller platforms would be much higher, as would Goto and Tanahashi, and guys like Misawa, Kawada and Kobashi would be even more so, as would people like Michaels or Ric Flair or Benoit, Angle, Guerrero, Jericho, Edge, or even a guy like Takagi who has been great forever but spent most of his career in Dragon Gate. Fred Moreland used cage match data for total points based on number of matches that did 6.25 or above, which he said was equivalent to a 3 stars half rating. That Bailey was first in total points based on having 59 matches rated at that level this year, with Ospreay second with 35 matches at that level and Konosuke Takeshita third and having 34 matches, followed by Syuri, 41 matches but her total points were fourth, Moxley 29, Okada 27, Julia 42, Starlight Kid 48, Kazusada Higuchi 25, and Dax Harwood 23. The rest of the top 25 would have been Sayaka Mitani, Momo Watanabe, Ishii, Aussie Open, Mayu Iwatani, Rey Fénix, Nick Jackson, Suzu Suzuki, Tam Nakano, Matt Jackson, Danielson, Josh Alexander, and Takagi. The only WWE place winner in the top 50 from cage match was Seth Rollins at 33. Moreland noted that women benefit greatly, as did Bailey, because they did more matches that people saw and rated compared to the others. For those who had at least 10 matches rated, the highest average points per match, in order, were Ospreay, Jun Kasai, Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Harwood, Adam Page, Cash Wheeler, Higuchi, Okada, Danielson, Jay Briscoe, and Mark Briscoe, Moxley, Ishii, Takeshita, Josh Alexander, Bandito, Go Shiozaki, Rey Fénix, Gunther, Bailey, and Aussie Open. You could say that's better, but the other method rewards workhorses who worked a harder schedule and had more good matches. They also noted Stardom benefits because the people who rate matches on cage match often have biases towards certain promotions. Power Slap, the new combat sports promotion started up by the Fertitta brothers, with Dana White as the front man, debuted on TBS on January 18th right after Dynamite with 295,000 viewers and a 0.1018 to 49 number. The show was heavily criticized because it was essentially people slapping each other with no ability to use movement or their hands to defend. The show featured vicious knockouts, gigantic hematomas and bad bruises as they decided on who to allow into a house for a season 1 reality show similar to The Ultimate Fighter in many ways. Former WWE wrestler and concussion expert Chris Nowinski in particular was appalled by the show. This is so sad. Note the fencing posture with the first brain injury. He may never be the same. Dana White and TBS should be ashamed. Pure exploitation. What's next? Who can survive a stabbing? I believe adults can choose to do dangerous jobs if they understand the risks and reasonable efforts are made to protect them. But head hits with no defense is just sad. It reminds us that people who don't take the risks often exploit those who do. White was all over the episode. White said there was no editing regarding him off the episodes. Early in the show, White talked to the competitors about how it's good because he can slap the shit out of people you hate, and then was backstage watching the events giddy when men and women were knocked almost senseless because of the strong blows with no defense. There was some thought that it could make it as a novelty, or that it would draw with the idea the public loves to see brutal knockouts. Time will tell, but the first rating does not look good. It comes across to me as something that would ever be good, but was 15 years past being acceptable. It may have worked at a time when violent knockouts in football and combat sports were treated differently and viewed differently. The culture has shifted to where they are accepted in combat sports still and part of the lore, but people no longer want to see savage beatings because of greater awareness of the repercussions. The show was number 45 for the night. In the time slot, even losing heavily from the AEW lead-in, it finished in 6th place. For the week of January 9th to January 15th, SmackDown was 6th among network sports shows in both viewers and 18 to 49, trailing only 5 NFL playoff games. If Raw was listed as sport, last week's show was second to the College Football Championship game among sports on cable, no NFL on cable last week, and third in 18 to 49 behind the College Championship game and a Lakers-Mavericks NBA game on TNT. Dynamite was 11th in total viewers among sports on cable last week behind the same shows that beat Raw, as well as 3 college basketball games and 6 NBA games. In 18 to 49 it was 11th behind the Football Championship, 1 college basketball game and 8 NBA games. For the week, Raw was 7th on cable behind 5 shows related to the College Football Championship game and 1 NBA game. Dynamite was 17th. Raw is likely to be first most weeks going forward unless there is a strong NBA or college basketball game. Among non-sports shows, Raw was first, 90 Day, HIA, No Limits on TLC and Dynamite were the top 3. Dynamite was the 8th youngest skewing sports show of the week, behind 4 NBA games, 2 EPL games and 1 NHL game. AEW Dynamite on January 18th did 969,000 viewers within 0.31, 402,000 viewers in 18 to 49 and in 0.22 in 18 to 34. While down in the key demos, it held up well considering the star power on last week's show from Los Angeles compared to this week's show, and beat last week in teenagers and over 50. Dynamite was third for the night behind the 2 NBA games on ESPN, and second in the time slot behind Atlanta vs. Dallas, 1,219,000 0.47. It beat Challenge, 637,000 0.29, and Sister Series, 986,000 0.24, which have been its toughest non-NBA competition. Dynamite beat both NBA games with women and was third behind Sister Series and Challenge. It was 5th in men 18 to 49 behind ESPN programming. It was 4th in 18 to 34, second to Challenge in women 12 to 34, beating both NBA games, and 7th in men 12 to 34 behind ESPN programming. It was up 1.3% from last week in viewers, down 6.3% in 18 to 49 and down 12.2% in 18 to 34. From last year, the show was down 6.1% in viewers, down 29.5% in 18 to 49 and down 21.8% in 18 to 34. Factoring in the loss of homes watching, the real numbers would be up 1.7% in viewers, but still down 23.5% in 18 to 49 and down 15.0% in 18 to 34. The show did 78,000 viewers in men 18 to 34, down 20.4% from last week, 73,000 in women 18 to 34, down 1.4%, 173,000 in men 35 to 49, down 7.0%, and 78,000 in women 35 to 49, up 11.4%. The audience was 62.4% male in 18 to 49. The show did in 0.18 in 12 to 17, up 12.5% from last week 0.22 in 18 to 34, down 12.2%, 0.40 in 35 to 49, down 2.0%, and 0.43 in 50 plus, up 2.4%. The show opened at 1,197,000 viewers and 467,000 in 18 to 49 for Orange Cassidy vs. Jay Lethal for the All-Atlantic title. Young Bucks vs. Top Flight did 976,000 viewers and 405,000 in 18 to 49. The finish of Bucks vs. Top Flight in the segment with the Guns and the Acclaimed and the Adam Page promo did 993,000 viewers and 403,000 in 18 to 49. Jake Hager vs. Ricky Starks, an Adam Cole video, Jazz promo and the start of Bryan Danielson vs. Bandito did 971,000 viewers and 401,000 in 18 to 49. Danielson vs. Bandito did 975,000 viewers and 419,000 in 18 to 49. The finish of Danielson vs. Bandito promos with Saraya and Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida, MJF and Brian Cage and Prince Nana and the start of Storm vs. Willow Nightingale did 923,000 viewers and 411,000 in 18 to 49. Storm vs. Nightingale and the post-match, plus promos with Stokely Hathaway and Ethan Page did 853,000 viewers and 358,000 in 18 to 49. Darby Allin vs. Kushida for the TNT title did 867,000 viewers and 350,000 in 18 to 49. NXT on January 17 did 600,000 viewers within 0.14, 182,000 viewers in 18 to 49 and 0.07 in 18 to 34. The show was below most of the recent episodes and well down from last week, but that was to be expected given last week was the heavily promoted New Year's Evil show. The show was actually up from last week with men, but it did terrible numbers with women, within 0.07 in 18 to 49 and 0.02 in 12 to 34, and was also way down with viewers under the age of 35. NXT was number 26 on cable and 11th in the time slot. It was down 14.3% from last week in viewers, down 9.9% in 18 to 49 and down 22.2% in 18 to 34. From last year, when the show did one of its lower numbers in its history, this year was up 2.2% in viewers, up 22.1% in 18 to 49 and up 16.7% in 18 to 34. Factoring in the homes lost over the past year by cable, the real percentage increases were 9.0% in viewers, 29.5% in 18 to 49 and 23.3% in 18 to 34. The show did 136,000 men in 18 to 49, up 2.3%, and 46,000 women, down 33.3%. The male skew was 74.7%, which is exceedingly high due to the lower women numbers. The show did in 0.04 in 12 to 17, down 42.9% from last week, 0.07 in 18 to 34, down 22.2%, 0.21 in 35 to 49, same as last week, and 0.34 in 50 plus, down 12.8%. Raw on January 16th did the fourth lowest total viewer number in history, third not including the recent Best of Show, but even so, I'd call it a good number going against the toughest competition the show has had in years. Raw did 1,489,000 viewers within 0.42, 547,000 viewers in 18 to 49 and 0.30 in 18 to 34. The monster opposition was the Dallas Cowboys vs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers playoff game that could have been Tom Brady's last game. The game did 31,098,000 viewers and an 8.39 in 18 to 49 and 6.13 in 18 to 34. In 18 to 49 and 18 to 34, Raw did what I'd call strong numbers given the opposition. Raw also beat everything on television in 18 to 49 except football-related programming on ABC, ESPN and ESPN2, and Univision. Raw was 7th on cable and 3rd in the time slot. Raw was 8th in women 18 to 49, 7th in men 18 to 49, 7th in 18 to 34, 6th in women 12 to 34, 7th in men 12 to 34th, and 21st in total viewers behind only football-related shows and news shows. Things would have been much worse had the game been competitive and likely would have been the lowest total viewer mark in history other than the Best of Show. But in 18 to 49 and 18 to 34, the numbers weren't far from normal against football and all numbers should be way up starting next week with no more football competition. In fact, in comparison to last year against a playoff game, things were actually up in the key demos when you factor in lost homes. The show was down 12.0% in viewers from last week, down 16.1% in 18 to 49 and down 11.8% in 18 to 34. From 1 year ago, also against a playoff game, but not one nearly as strong ratings-wise, the show was down 7.7% in viewers, down 2.7% in 18 to 49 and down 3.2% in 18 to 34. Factoring in the loss of cable homes, the realistic changes were down 2.2% in viewers, up 1.8% in 18 to 49 and up 2.6% in 18 to 34. The show did 357,000 in men 18 to 49, down 13.9% from last week, and 190,000 in women 18 to 49, down 20.2%. The audience was 65.3% men and 18 to 49. The first to third hour drops for a show built around a six-way U.S. title top contender match with Seth Rollins, Miz, Finn Balor, Dolph Ziggler, Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin was 22.6% in women 18 to 49, 12.3% in men 18 to 49, 12.2% in girls 12 to 17, a 30.1% increase in boys 12 to 17, which is crazy, but that also could be people tuning out of the game because it was one-sided, but that was different from every other demo, and 14.3% down in 50+. The show did in 0.22 in 12 to 17, same as last week, 0.30 in 18 to 34, down 11.8%, 0.54 in 35 to 49, down 20.6%, and 0.72 in 50+, down 8.9%. A correction from last week. On the January 6th SmackDown show, the 0.53 18 to 49 rating we listed as tied for first place in 18 to 49, but Fire Country on CBS did in 0.56, so SmackDown tied with Shark Tank for second place. Rampage on January 13th did 513,000 viewers and in 0.13 in 18 to 49 and a weak 0.06 in 18 to 34. The viewer number was very good by recent standards, but it was an older audience as shown by so 18 to 49 and week 18 to 34 numbers compared to recent weeks. From a marquee standpoint, there wasn't much to this show since Juice Robinson was an unknown as Darby Allin's opponent and the women's street fight was not going to grab viewers who pick and choose. But they were coming off a hot show in Los Angeles, but that didn't seem to help much. The show was number 24 on cable and in its time slot, it was sixth behind an LA Clippers vs Denver Nuggets NBA game. No ESPN, 1,114,000 0.39, Love After Lockup, 586,000 0.20, On Patrol Live on Reels, 824,000 0.16, Michigan State vs Illinois College Basketball on FS1, 604,000 0.16, and House Hunters on HGTV, 919,000 0.13. From the Portland show the week before, it was down 6.9% in viewers, down 13.3% in 18 to 49 and down 45.5% in 18 to 34. From 1 year ago, the viewers were down 2.5%, but 18 to 49 was down 33.6%, which shows the aging, and 18 to 34 was down 45.5%. Factoring out homes lost for the year on cable, it would have been up 5.7% in viewer ratings, down 28.1% in 18 to 49 and down 40.9% in 18 to 34. The audience was 104,000 men in 18 to 49, down 11.1% from last week, and 66,000 women, down 16.5%. The audience was 61.2% male in 18 to 49, showing that the losses from when the show is strong are far more with men than women. The show opened with Darby Allin vs Juice Robinson and a Powerhouse Hobbs promo at 538,000 viewers and 179,000 in 18 to 49. The Acclaimed and Guns promo, Swerve Strickland promo, and Eddie Kingston and Ortiz vs Brody King and Malachi Black did 493,000 viewers and 178,000 in 18 to 49. The second half of the tag match, Jade Cargill, Paul Walter Hauser, Danhausen, Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sonya Dutt and Satnam Singh stealing the Golden Globe Award did 497,000 viewers and 160,000 in 18 to 49. The Willow Nightingale and Ruby Soho vs Tay Melo and Anna Jay Street fight did 524,000 viewers and 161,000 in 18 to 49. It's very rare to see a viewer jump like that for the Rampage main event, but the jump was almost exclusively those over 50. The show did in 0.06 in 12 to 17, up 20.0% from last week, 0.06 in 18 to 34, down 45.5%, 0.20 in 35 to 49, up 5.3%, and 0.26 in 50+, down 7.1%. SmackDown on January 13th, built around Kevin Owens vs. Sami Zayn, did a 1.42 rating with 2,327,000 viewers, 1.33 viewers per home, within 0.55, 718,000 viewers, in 18 to 49 and 0.35 in 18 to 34. SmackDown tied with Shark Tank for first in 18 to 49 and also beat the NBA on cable and Spanish shows, so it was tied for first in all of television. Of the 9 shows on English major network broadcasting, it was first by a wide margin in 18 to 34. It was also ahead of the NBA on cable but behind 2 shows on Univision. Among the 9 network shows, it was third in 25 to 54, 7th in women 18 to 49, first in men 18 to 49 and 7th in total viewers. It was up 7.6% in homes from last week, up 3.1% in viewers, up 3.9% in 18 to 49 and up 6.1% in 18 to 34. From 1 year ago, it was up 4.4% in homes, up 7.0% in viewers, down 1.9% in 18 to 49 and even in 18 to 34. Gunther vs. Braun Strowman opened at 2,349,000 viewers and 741,000 in 18 to 49. The last part of that match plus Paul Heyman and Sami Zayn backstage did 2,372,000 viewers and 748,000 in 18 to 49. The Rey Mysterio, Karrion Kross and Scarlett segment, plus the Liv Morgan, Maxine, Raquel Rodriguez and Emma segment and a Ricochet promo did 2,356,000 viewers and 747,000 in 18 to 49. Tegan Nox vs. Xia Li, Viking Raiders package and Drew McIntyre, Sheamus and Adam Pearce did 2,267,000 viewers and 674,000 in 18 to 49. Bray Wyatt promo, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Imperium promo did 2,316,000 viewers and 701,000 in 18 to 49. Morgan vs. Rodriguez, Pearce and Sonya Deville and the Charlotte Flair/Deville Brawl plus Cody Rhodes video did 2,332,000 viewers and 706,000 in 18 to 49. Owens vs. Zayn first part did 2,250,000 viewers and 682,000 in 18 to 49, but the final quarter jumped to 2,373,000 viewers and 742,000 in 18 to 49. Young Rock did 1,481,000 viewers within 0.27 in 18 to 34 and 0.14 in 18 to 34. It was last place in every key demo and total viewers among all 9 shows on cable. It was still up 13.4% in viewers from the prior week, up 12.5% in 18 to 49 and up 55.6% in 18 to 34. For the first time in history, on January 12th, New Japan actually tied Impact in viewers and slightly beat them in 18 to 49 in a worse time slot on the same night. Of course, it took the Kenny Omega vs. Will Ospreay match to do so it's not the sign of anything that should be expected on a regular basis nor an indication of New Japan growing television popularity. The number for that match would still be minuscule compared to the numbers New Japan drew on AXS in its first incarnation. AEW did 81,000 viewers and 16,000 in 18 to 49. Those figures were down from 101,000 and 18,000 the prior week and 111,000 and 38,000 for the same week last year. New Japan, airing at 10 p.m., did 81,000 viewers and 19,000 in 18 to 49, up from 47,000 and 5,000 the poor week. New Japan had its highest viewer number since 3/24 and highest 18 to 49 number since June 2nd, Okada vs. Naito for the IWGP title. CMLL, the January 13th second week of the night of rematches of some of the best matches of 2022 took place. Esfinge and Fugaz beat Ruhito and Mahia Blanca in a rematch from October 28th. Dulce Gardenia beat Virus in a rematch of February 12th. Guerrero Maya Jr. and Rey Cometa and Espiritu Negro beat Akuma and Dark Magic and Espanto Jr. in 15-23 in a rematch of April 19th. Hechicero beat Euphoria in a rematch from August 19th. The main event saw Averno and Místico beating Rocky Romero and Volador Jr. It was billed as a rematch from 3/18, except Volador Jr.'s partner in that match wasn't Romero. It was TJP. Volador and Romero didn't get along and Volador wanted a singles match. Romero won that extra match with a low blow in 2:10 and that sets up a January 20th match for Volador's NWA welterweight title. Volador said that if Romero wins the title, he'll put up his hair for a rematch. The Romero-Volador split was very reminiscent of the Místico vs. Black Warrior turn, which was on everyone's mind this past week due to the death of Black Warrior and people remembering the great success of that program. Both Místico and Inverno on Friday had half Black Warrior masks on. Also on January 20th is Angel de Oro and Cavernario and Niebla Rojo vs. Oraculo and Templario and Dragon Rojo Jr. On January 15th at Arena Mexico, Atlantis Jr. and Volador Jr. and Titan beat Cavernario and Romero and Ultimo Guerrero when Romero again tried a low blow, but Volador blocked it and hit Romero with a backstabber. On January 27th, they will be doing the Rey de Air tournament, basically a Cibernetico to determine this year's King of Flyers. It's usually a very entertaining match. Listed participants are Místico, Soberano Jr., Atlantis Jr., Fugaz, Pantrita del Ring Jr., Suka Jr., Templario, Cavernario, Dragon Rojo Jr., and Gran Guerrero. Given that lineup, this should fit that bill. Rocky Romero continued his headline feud with Volador Jr. on January 16th in Puebla. Romero and Gran Guerrero beat Volador and Atlantis Jr., with Romero using a low blow to pin Volador. The next night in Guadalajara, Romero and Templario beat Volador Jr. and Angel de Oro when Romero faked that Volador had given him a low blow and the ref bought it. Sagrado defends the Mexican national heavyweight title against Valiente on January 22nd at Arena Mexico. On January 17th at Arena Mexico, Stuka Jr., in his new role as a Rudo, teamed with Ultimo and Gran Guerrero over Atlantis Jr. and Titan and Místico when Stuka pinned Místico after unmasking him. Stardom officially finished behind New Japan as the number 2 live attendance promotion in Japan for 2022. Pure Stardom events drew 84,060 fans in 114 shows, 737 per show, up from 47,405 in 101 shows, 469 per show, in 2021, an increase of 57.1% per event. It should be noted these numbers don't include Historic X Over, the joint show with New Japan. The total becomes 91,162 on 115 shows, 792 per show, and the increase per event to 68.9%. New Japan was first with 231,728 paid on 144 shows, 1,609 per event, or 238,830 in 145, 1,647 average, if you include Historic X Over. Dragon Gate was in third place with 74,498 in 165 shows, 452 per event. The second biggest women's group, Tokyo Joshi Pro, had 20,652 fans in 60 events, 344 per event. Current Triangle Derby standings are Red Block with Tam Nakano and Natsupoi Insaki, Nani Takahashi and Yuna Mishimori, Mina Shirakawa and Shia Brookside and Mariah May and Starlight Kid and Ruaka, Haruka Umesaki all with 4. Utami Hayashishida and Sayaka Mitani and AZM had 3. Julia and Mai Sakurai and Thekla had 2. Mayu Iwatani and Hanan and Momo Kogo had 0. The blue block has Risa Sura and Suzu Suzuki and Kurumi Hiragi and Natsuko Tora and Momo Watanabe and Saki Kashima with 6. Siri and Mirai and Emi Sore have 5 points. Maika and Himika and Lady C have 4. Hazuki and Koguma and Saya Ida and Ram Keichao and Maya Yukihi and Maika Ozaki have 2. Waka Tsukiyama and Rina Amakura and Yuko Sakurai have 0. January 14th in Osaka before 406 fans saw Starlight and Ruaka and Umesaki over Maika and Himika and Lady C in 9:12 when Ruaka pinned C with a freezer bomb. Shirakawa and Brookside and May beat Hazuki and Koguma and Ida in 10:03 when May pinned Ida after a tombstone piledriver. Takahashi and Yuna Mishimori beat Sura and Suzuki and Hiragi in 13:21 when Takahashi pinned Hiragi with a refrigerator bomb. Tora and Watanabe and Kashima beat Hayashishida and Kamitani and AZM in 11:06 when Kashima beat AZM with the Kishikaisei. Siri and Mirai and Sore beat Julia and Sakurai and Thekla in 13:47 when Mirai beat Sakurai with Muramare. Nakano and Natsupoi and Saki beat Keichao and Yukihi and Ozaki in 11:55 when Nakano pinned Ozaki with a tiger suplex. January 15th in Osaka before 454 fans had Hayashishida and Kamitani and AZM over Tsukiyama and Amakura and Sakurai in 11:39 when Kamitani pinned Tsukiyama with a star crusher. Starlight and Ruaka and Umesaki beat Keichao and Yukihi and Ozaki in 10:55 via DQ. Maika and Himika and C beat Iwatani and Hanan and Kogo in 11:47 when Lady C beat Kogo. Sarah and Suzuki and Hiragi beat Shirakawa and Brookside and May in 11:47 when Sarah pinned May with a double knee drop off the top rope. Tora and Watanabe and Kashima beat Julia and Sakurai and Thekla in 12:25 when Tora pinned Thekla. Dragon Gate. Over the past week, I was alerted that a lot of Dragon Gate information I had received and used last year came from one or two people doing a hoax. During that period I received correspondence from someone who allegedly worked in the company office and from one of the company's top wrestlers. The hoaxer, who could have been one person or two, largely complained about alleged power gains by Nozawa Rongai in regard to taking more and more control of booking. Nozawa actually was booking the Open the Triangle Gate titles for a time, because the belts were being defended in both Dragon Gate and his home promotion, Pro Wrestling Noah. There is a lot more I will probably say about this in the future, but it is my job not to fall for these things and I did, and am very unhappy about it. In looking back, I probably should have figured it out and eventually was told information wasn't real and stopped with it, but did not know it was a hoax as much as I thought it was people with an agenda against Nozawa perhaps embellishing stories. But each corroborated other stories, and while at first, when I checked them out, others close to the company denied the stories. In time, if I would check it out, people didn't respond and the stories did keep coming. There was a lot of behind-the-curtain news that I didn't print. What also made it believable is Kaito Ishida was the name of the wrestler, and the person masquerading as Ishida claimed he was unhappy and would be leaving the company. Then Ishida did leave the company and is now wrestling for GLEAT. Then when it became public later he was leaving, the fake Ishida explained why. It was noted to me that Ishida actually doesn't know English, and I should have checked with people. But in doing so, that would violate me allowing people to know sources. But the information regarding Nozawa in the booking of the company was not true and I apologize for that. Pro Wrestling Noah. The final match of the Great Muta, teaming with Sting and Darby Allin against Akira and Hakushi, Jinsei Shinzaki, and Namichi Marufuji headlines the January 22nd show at the Yokohama Arena. The show will start at 1 a.m. Eastern late Saturday night. It will be the next to last match of Keiji Muto. It's the last match of Muta. The most famous great kabuki, Akihisa Mera, who was considered the father of the Great Muta gimmick, and in WCW, when Gary Hart managed Muta they would claim he was Kabuki's son, will be appearing at the show. The actual first great kabuki, spelled that way, who debuted the face painting aspect of the gimmick, was Ray Urbano, a Filipino wrestler who did it late in his career from 1973 to 1983 working for the Sheik, Mike LaBelle, Frank Tunney, the Funks and finishing with the Pafos ICW. The show will air live on Fight TV. The semi is Kaito Kiyomiya and L.E.O. de Dr. Wagner Jr. and Takashi Sugiura and Satoshi Kojima vs. Keno and Katsuhiko Nakajima and Masakatsu Funaki and Manabu Soya. New Japan. Mercedes Moné has filed a trademark for the term the CEO since WWE owns the trademark for the boss. She had already been called the CEO Mercedes Moné at the Tokyo Dome show. Under her real name of Mercedes Varnado, she was part of a movie that just finished filming called The Collective. The movie is about a group of righteous assassins who take aim at a highly sophisticated human trafficking ring backed by a network of billionaires. The major show this week is January 21st at the Yokohama Arena for the second Wrestle Kingdom show of the year, with a New Japan vs. Noah theme. It's on New Japan World but as a pay-per-view show. It starts at 3 a.m. Eastern with Kosei Fujita and Ryohei Oiwa of New Japan against Taisha Ozawa and Yasutaka Yano from Noah. Then is Oscar Loiba and Tomohiro Ishii of New Japan against Masa Kitamiya and Daiki Inaba of Noah. A Noah and New Japan combination team of Hiroshi Tanahashi and Satoshi Kojima and Takashi Sugiura and Toru Yano face the Bullet Club team of Kena and Geto and El Fantasma plus Kena's former tag team partner Namichi Marufuji. Desperado of New Japan faces Yohei. The New Japan Junior Heavyweight trio of Master Wato and Ryusuke Taguchi and Tiger Mask faces a Noah Junior trio of Alejandro Amakusa and Hunta Miyawaki. IWGP Champion Kazuchika Okada and Togi Makabe of New Japan face GHC Champion Kaito Kiyomiya and Yoshiki Inamura. Then it's LIJ vs. Kongo in a best-of-5 with Bushi vs. Tadasuke, Hiromu Takahashi vs. Hajime Ohara, Sanada vs. Manabu Soya, Shingo Takagi vs. Katsuhiko Nakajima and Tetsuya Naito vs. Keno. The show for WrestleMania weekend will be on March 30th at 8 p.m. at the Globe Theater in Los Angeles. They also officially announced Sakura Genesis on April 8th at Sumo Hall, which will be fully opened and cheering will be allowed. The winner of the IWGP men and women's title matches on February 18th in San Jose will both defend their titles on that show. The men's champion will face the New Japan Cup winner. Mercedes Moné, win or loss against Kairi on February 18th, will be on the Sumo Hall show, which will be her New Japan in-ring debut. All 6 Fantastica Mania shows from February 22nd to February 28th will be airing live on New Japan World, but only in Japanese. For the last quarter reported July through September, Bushiroad Sports Division took in $11.83 million in revenue and had $2.7 million in profit. This is largely New Japan and Stardom. It noted that the G1 Climax tournament attendance was up 70% from 2021, and that the 5-star Grand Prix from Stardom did 18,998 paid in 21 shows. Revenue was up 33.9% among the two companies in the quarter from the bad 2021, where the quarter saw $7.34 million in losses. A correction on the first name of the former assistant booker who has moved to Noah is Yosuke Kikuchi, not Yoichi Kikuchi. Other Japan notes. Naruki Doi retained the DDT Universal title, beating Yuki Ueno and Daisuke Sasaki in a 3-way on January 13th in Shinjuku Face in Tokyo before 241 fans. He pinned Sasaki in 1749 with a Hurricane Rana cutback cradle and then pinned Ueno in 2059 with the muscular bomb. Here and there. Kevin Nash, understandably, is in a bad way over his son's death and talked about it again this past week on his Click This podcast. There was an interaction that scared people, but later he explained that a day doesn't go by where he doesn't have moments. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing that happens is, I come to the realization that instead of there being 3 human beings in my home, there's now 2, he said. And the third person isn't on vacation or staying with friends, or is out late. He's never coming back. And then I sit up in the bed and I have absolutely nothing I have to do, and it's like, so, why am I getting out of bed? Earlier he had said, today is week 12 that I lost my boy. Time flies when you got a gun in your mouth. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. His co-host Sean Oliver said, don't play like that, he said. You have guns so you can't say those things? Nash then said, I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. Long as I leave a note. Nash had previously said his son, Tristan, died at 26 from seizures that could have resulted from quitting alcohol cold turkey. Nash did tell us the next day that he was fine and that he and Scott Hall would always say that nobody who talks publicly about that actually is going to do it. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office made a wellness check on Nash, who told them he had no intention of doing so, and he later tweeted, everyone take a breath. Let's not take my biggest coping mechanism, sarcasm, and blow it out of proportion. I appreciate the concern and the fact that others find it a perfect time for insults. Continue to get you updates on at TMZ and wrestling sites. I've got legs to train today. Reports from Publimetro were that the death of Black Warrior was due to a bacteria that was in his bloodstream following treatment of an injury. He had been hospitalized for a few days before passing away. Ginny Sanduhan, 35, announced her retirement on January 14th. After a long time away due to an injury, I've made the decision to hang up my fashionable boots. Thank you for all the memories. I'll remember them forever. Every journey has an end, but in life, every ending is just a new beginning. I'm excited about what's next. She had been wrestling for the NXT UK branch before it was shut down. She started wrestling in 2015 using her real name of Ginny Sandu, Ginny Couture, most likely after Randy Couture and just Ginny. She married Walter Hahn Gunther last year. She had signed with WWE in 2018. She was Rev Pro British Women's Champion once and Progress Women's Champion twice earlier in her career. Superstar Billy Graham was moved out of ICU to the Progressive Care Unit this last week. The situation was still very serious, and his heart rate and blood pressure was stable enough to have him moved. The movie Glass Onion, a Knives Out story, where Dave Bautista was one of the stars, won the Critics' Choice Awards for Best Acting Ensemble Cast and Best Comedy. A celebration of life for Don West will take place on May 20th in Wenatchee, Washington at the Town Toyota Center at 1 p.m. Ric Flair is now doing endorsements for Mount Everest, a male enhancement pill. Enrique Rican Sanchez, who is well known as the guy doing interviews on the WWC television show during its heyday, passed away this past week. Sanchez was a television producer, commentator, and founder of the now-defunct Videomax TV channel in Puerto Rico. He was both the lead interviewer on the show as well as the producer of the show, and owned the TV studio where the television show was taped. He had worked in radio as a commentator and then did a boxing television show called Knockout of the Night on WAPA TV, the longtime home of the WWC. The show drew astronomical television ratings during its heyday. IWTV announced the results of their fan-voted Independent Wrestling Awards. Mike Bailey and Alec Price tied in the balloting for Wrestler of the Year. Violence is Forever of Kevin Koo and Dominic Guarini won Tag Team of the Year for the fourth straight year. Match of the Year was Cruel vs. Sadika vs. Mickey Knuckles vs. Schlock in ICNHB. Moment of the Year was Casey Kirk winning the American Deathmatch title in ICW NHB. After Maximo, his family member, announced his retirement, La Mascara said he's starting to think about retiring. He has wrestled infrequently the last few years. In Mexico, nobody believes anyone is really retiring because almost everyone comes back until they are just too old, and these two members of the famous Alvarado family don't fit into that category. A correction from last week. The Brian Keith vs. Mike Bailey PWG match should have been listed as 4.25 stars. Dr. Wagner Jr. was critical of El Hijo del Vikingo and Bandito, saying that they've never made the kind of matches that he had with people like Macias and Zorro. It's the circle of life, although I do think that too he was critical of try and do too much and could do less, do more mat wrestling in between, and their big stuff will stand out more. Ron and Cassie Arniel, Sean Spears and Peyton Hoyce announced the birth of son Austin J. Arniel on January 17th. Women of Wrestling for the weekend of January 1st did 353,000 viewers and 86,000, 0.07, in 18 to 49 according to WrestleNomics. It was the third highest number to date for viewers, and the 0.07 tied the high mark of the October 9th show. Bandito dropped his own Big Lucha World title to Emperador Azteca on January 14th at Bandito's gym in Mexico City. Flamita interfered at one point when Bandito was about to win, but the Azteca pin was clean. Bandito will continue to work on his shows. El Hijo del Santo, 59, did his first match since July on January 14th. At the show they did an angle for a Santo vs. Bobby Lee Jr. mask vs. mask match. Santo's father beat Bobby Lee to win his mask in their 1978 feud that drew what at the time were some of the biggest live gates in the history of pro wrestling. Bret Hart will be opening Hitman's Bar in Calgary next month. David Marquez promoted the Red Carpet Rumble before just over 1,000 fans with 970 paid on January 14th at Bell Ballpark in Mesa, Arizona. The matches were taped for Marquez's UWN Championship Wrestling television show. Clark Connors beat Jacob Austin Young. Midnight Heat of Ricky Gibson and Eddie Pearl won the UWN Tag Team titles over Reno Scum of Adam Thornstowe and Luster the Legend. Zeta Jong beat Danielle Camella. Camella was Vanessa born in NXT before being let go during COVID. Marina Shafir was originally booked but pulled out late. Kevin Martinson pinned Davey Richards. Bad Dude Tito became the top contender for the UWN title, winning a four-way over Sean Dean, Joey Janela, and Willie Mack. Peter Avalon beat R3 Cassis. Alexander Hammerstone beat Ortiz. UWN champion Danny Limelight went to a no contest with Eddie Kingston when Jordan Clearwater and Invictus Kosh interfered. Cash then won the UWN Rumble. Roy Lucier, a well-known Lucha Libre fan, is getting married this weekend in the Sacramento, California area. He had been going down a bad path, but his love for Lucha Libre and wrestling in general and his friends from wrestling got him clean and basically saved his life. He said that in his vows he's going to read 1004 Ways He Loves Her, with number 1 being arm drag, as a takeoff of a famous Chris Jericho man of 1004 holds from his WCW feud with Dean Malenko. There will be photos and videos to make it make sense for non-fans. World Series Wrestling will be running a 4-show tour of Australia in March. Johnny Down Under, the former John Morrison, will be back as WSW World Champion. Others on the tour are Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, Eric Redbeard, Bandito, Josh Alexander, TJP, Joey Janela, Effie, Blake Christian, Diana Perazzo, Jordan Grace, and Taya Valkyrie. Chigusa Nagio will be wrestling for the first time in the U.S. in nearly 10 years on the May 13th Queen of Indies show in San Francisco. She will not be in the tournament, although there will be women from her marvelous promotion in the tournament. Bill Goldberg was on NCIS Los Angeles on January 15th in his recurring role of DEA agent Lance Hamilton. It appeared he's dropped noticeable muscular size and weight since his last WWE appearance, which does make sense because there's hardly a reason to be that size year-round. The Burt Prentice Chinese restaurant note in last week's print issue was incorrect, in the sense there was a commercial that was sent to me last week, but it was an older commercial done before Prentice passed away. Europe. The next Rev Pro York Hall show is 326 with Zack Sabre Jr. facing Michael Oku. The show also features the Revolution Rumble with Eddie Dennis, Francesco Akira, and Leon Slater. The promotion announced a new W's Now will be airing on YouTube starting immediately. All the shows from mid-2022 on have been put up, and they will add new content daily and will be putting up all the 16-karat gold tournaments dating back to 2020. They will put up most of the stuff, but not all, such as older interviews and matches with talent gone for reasons that are controversial. Lio Rush faces Danny Black on the January 22 Progress show in London, headlined by Spike Trivet defending the world title against Gene Money. Lana Austin defends the women's title against Session Moth Martina. ICW announced they will stream their shows on YouTube for free for the time being, as well as their ICW On Demand service. 1PW announced its February 18 show at the Engine Shed in Lincoln, England is sold out, with Will Ospreay vs. Robbie X as the main event, plus Cara Noir vs. Davey Richards, Ruby Soho vs. Martina vs. Lizzie Evo, John Morrison vs. Nathan Cruz, plus Taya Valkyrie, Trey Miguel, Rhino, and Mark Haskins. MLW, Myron Reed's contract expired and he's no longer with the company. Reed was a three-time middleweight champion. Fightful first reported his contract had expired, and MLW confirmed he was no longer being used and called it an amicable split after 5 years. Lio Rush vs. Davey Richards was announced for the February 4 show in Philadelphia. GCW, the collective shows over WrestleMania week, will be multiple per day from 3/30 to April 2 at the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Los Angeles, which is GCW's home base. The biggest events will be the Josh Barnett Bloodsport show on March 30 at 4 p.m. and a DDT show at 8 p.m. on March 31. There will be a DDT vs. GCW show at 3 p.m. and Joey Janela's Spring Break at 8 p.m. on April 1. At 9 p.m. will be Gringo Loco's Lucha show, and there will be an Independent Hall of Fame ceremony on April 2 at noon. GCW reached a deal with AAA, so from this point forward they will be able to live stream El Hijo del Vikingo matches, starting with the January 20th show in Charlotte where Vikingo faces Gringo Loco. Kevin Kleinrock and Masked Republic convinced AAA to change its policy, and all Vikingo appearances booked through the Lucha Libre agency can stream, but it has to be a pay-per-view offering and not a free streaming show. Some promoters wouldn't book Vikingo with the idea that he would cost a lot, but they can't stream his matches. All promoters he's worked for thus far are now allowed to stream his matches live and on video on demand. Impact. Lusa Hadi, who headed a number of sports magazines and wrote at least 25 sports books, including the autobiographies of Willie Mays, Don Shula, and Len Dawson, as well as headed several pro wrestling magazines, underwent chemotherapy and radiation treatment for cancer and then contracted pneumonia and nearly died. David Sahadi, his son, who is a director for Impact Wrestling and a former WWE producer, noted that a miracle took place and he was able to bring him home the morning of the Hard to Kill show. Nielsen One has put out publicity essentially on changes to better gauge the audience and in particular advertisers. The new system is supposed to be able to measure second by second rather than minute by minute numbers, and in particular for advertisers for both traditional television and digital. The next major show is February 24th in Las Vegas, the streaming-only pay-per-view No Surrender, featuring Mickie James vs. Masha Slamovich for the Knockouts title. They taped 2 weeks of TV on January 14th at Center Stage in Atlanta after the pay-per-view show. Mahabali Shera and Raj Singh beat Andrew Everett and Aiden Prince in a match taped for streaming. The Design, a new tag team of Connor formerly of WWE's Ascension, and Angels, Alan Angels of the Dark Order, beat Delirious and Yuya Uemura. Diener then called out Sami Callihan, who laid out Delirious with a piledriver. For Impact, Mickie James came out. Bully Ray came out and played Bully, telling her to leave. James then told Bully to leave. He went to warn her. Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans came out to challenge James. They attacked James and Bully got a table. Frankie Kazarian and Jordan Grace made the save. Santino Marella and Ernest Miller came out as authority figures and announced it would be a 6-person tag match. James and Kazarian and Grace beat Bully and Steelz and Evans. Deonna Purrazzo beat Ashley D'Amboise. Killer Kelly beat Taylor Wilde by submission. Steve Macklin beat Dirty Dango. Trey Miguel beat Mike Jackson. Crazy Steve and Black Taurus both came out. Kushida and Kevin Knight beat the Good Hands, who are Jason Hotch and John Schuyler, with a gimmick that they are good wrestlers who don't get a push. The Death Dolls of Taya Valkyrie and Jessica Havoc beat Tara Lisa Varone, who was at the pay-per-view the night before supporting James, and Giselle Shaw. Shaw and Tara didn't get along, leading to their loss. Tara, the former Victoria in WWE, 51, hasn't wrestled regularly since 2019, although she did do a WWE Royal Rumble a couple of years ago. Ace Austin and Chris Bay beat Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. Jason Hendry sang a song about Cardona, calling him Edge's bitch. Jonathan Gresham beat Sheldon Jean. Rich Swann won a 6-way elimination match over Moose, Eddie Edwards, Rhino, Chris Sabine, and Callahan. Callahan beat Rhino first. Sabine pinned Edwards due to distraction from PCO. Moose then beat Sabine. Swann beat Moose, and then Swann beat Callahan. Khan and Angels attacked Swann, but Josh Alexander, Frankie Kazarian, and Uemura made the save. The final match taped was a pit fight match where Mike Bailey beat Kenny King. They're getting several weeks ahead on tapings, with doing shows on January 20th and January 21st in the Orlando area at the Osceola Heritage Park.